Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to help support the show by becoming a premium member, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast to sign up. Memberships are only $2.99 a month. By becoming a premium member, you'll be able to download episodes onto your mobile device and listen to them commercial-free wherever you go. Also, if you'd like to check out the new Dogman Encounters t-shirt store, please go to dogmanencounters.com/store and take a look around. Buying a t-shirt or sweatshirt there is another great way to help support the show. As always, thanks for listening. Alright, let's bring on tonight's guest. If you listened to episode 193 2 weeks ago, you'll remember tonight's guest, Marvin. On that episode, Marvin told us about the encounter he had, as well as encounters other eyewitnesses had had. Well, I'm happy to say Marvin's back due to popular demand for tonight's show. Marvin, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Vic.
Hey, thanks for coming back on the show. Like I told you in the pre-interview, you're a hot item.
Thanks a lot.
Well, you don't need to thank me. You can thank yourself for doing such a great job sharing these encounters. Yeah, the people listening, they loved you and couldn't get enough of you, actually.
Yeah, I read some of the comments, man, and they was all positive. So I appreciate everybody out there that said something positive. And I'm glad they enjoyed the show.
Well, it's a great group of people that we've got to listen to the show week in, week out. So, yeah, I can't say enough good things about them. For the listeners who haven't listened to episode 193, where you told us about your encounter and those of other eyewitnesses, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, my name is Marvin Allen, 49 years of age. I work down the docks. I like to read, write, play video games, spend time with my family, and get these encounters for the listeners out there.
I don't know what it is about how you deliver these encounters, but you're really good at doing that.
Thank you a lot, Vic.
Oh, you're welcome. It's just the truth. Before you tell us about the encounters you've gathered for tonight's show, please tell us how you acquired them.
Well, I was in North Carolina visiting my niece, and that's where I had my sighting at. And one day, the guy that worked on my niece's house came over there, and just out the blue, I asked him, "Do he believe in cryptids?" And he said, "Which one?" "Dogman." He said, "Absolutely." He said, "If you have time, I'll tell you about my encounter." So that's how I got plugged in with him. And he got a good friend that do that kind of research. So they collaborate and get these stories. And once they get these stories, Dave will pass it on to me. And I'll get in contact with the people that had the sighting. And there you go.
Well, like I've told you before, you must have been meant to do this because you do such a great job. All right, Marvin, please tell us about the new encounters you've prepared for us.
All right, Vic. This first encounter, it's not real long. And this encounter came out of Chesterfield County, Virginia. And the guy name is John. And this encounter happened in 1998. Now, John said that one day he had got a phone call from his father and asked him, can he come over there because his father wasn't feeling well. So John said, "Okay, Dad, I'll be over there." So John left out the house driving, said he was listening to the music while he was driving. But, he didn't have it up too loud. So after about 15 minutes, he comes to this intersection. And he said across on the other side of the intersection, which means he said he was making a right, then the car was over on the left-hand side. He said when he looked over there, he noticed that a guy had a flat. So he said, okay, since he had time, we would go over there and help the guy change his tire. So John said he helped the guy change his tire. And, before he left, the guy asked him, said, "Can I give you anything for you helping me change the tire?" So John was like, no, I'm okay. That's just my good deed for the day. So he said he started driving. He said as he was driving, he was coming around this turn, like a bend. Then he said it turned into a straightaway. He said when he was coming around on the straightaway on the left-hand side, about 30 yards, he said he sees something dragging a deer into the woods through the tree line. So he's looking. He said he's driving, but he's not going that fast. The speed limit, I think, was like 25, he said. So he's driving. So he said as he's driving slow, he said it's like everything just really just stopped. But as he's driving slow, he looks to the left. He said he's seen this gray figure. He said it was gray. It had the pointed ears. It had a tail. He could see the arm, the left arm that it was dragging this deer up in the tree line. He said he seen the arms, he could see the hand because they just went into the tree line dragging it. He could see the hands, he could see the arms. He said he could see the shoulders, that he knew it had shoulders. He said he couldn't really see the feet. But he said this thing was all gray. He could tell from the back that it had the head of a canine. So that was a short encounter right there, but basically that was his encounter. And he said that it opened his eyes up to what's really out here in these woods. So he just said that he wished that it was more people out there to make people aware what's roaming the woods of North America. I have a second encounter too, Vic, and this comes out of Danville, Virginia. And this sighting happened in 1990. Now, before I get into this sighting, though, Vic, I just want the listeners to know that this is a retired police officer. He was on the force for 25 years. And while he was on the force, this is when he had his encounter. So he said, one day, he said he was on his way going to work. So we checked in and did everything what he had to do. Then he said he left out, started his day. So he said he get a call on the dispatch of he said it was a disturbance call. So he goes to the location of this call and he knocks on the door and he said he was greeted by an elderly lady. And he said, did you call? She said, yeah. He said, well, what seems to be the problem? So she said that something grabbed her dog and took it up in the woods. So I asked her, I said, well, do you know what was it? She said, no, I don't know what was it. I just know it was black. It grabbed my dog and it walked up into the woods. He said, okay, do you want me to have a look to see if I see your dog? And she said, yes, can you please? So he said that he proceeded to go around back. Now he's checking out back for like disturbances and everything, on the ground and stuff like that. But he didn't see nothing usual or strange. So he said he walks up to the tree line. So as he walking through the tree line, another thing though, Vic, he did have his shotgun with him. I just want to put that out there. He did have his shotgun with him. So he said as he walking through the tree line, said he walked about 30 yards. Then he stopped because he said on the right-hand side, something over there is biting down, like an animal biting down on bones. He could hear that cracking. So he shines his flashlight over in that direction. Now, this thing that he saw is on an angle, but he can see the side profile of it. He said it had the head of a canine. He could see the ears, and he could see this creature putting the animal up to his mouth, started cracking. He said, then this thing stood up. And he said, when it stood up, it walked out. Now, when it walked out, he said it's like a little path. It's not like a real big path, but it's like a little path. He said this thing turned around. He said he still got the light on this thing. He said this thing had long arms. It had broad shoulders. He said that it had orange, amber eyes and a long snout. He said he could see the nails and everything, but he didn't know how long was the nail. He said then this thing took whatever he had out of his hand and he dropped it. He said then this thing started taking steps more. He said he aimed his shotgun. He said he didn't want to shoot it at first because he knew this probably wasn't going to do no damage because he said this thing was huge. He said it had to be at least 8.5 feet tall. He said, but this thing kept coming. He said it was taking big steps. He said, so he let off a round. Boom! He said he don't hit it because it made that sound. He said, and after he let off that first round, this thing stopped. He said that the left eye on this thing kept blinking. So he's thinking that maybe some of these pellets or whatever hit this thing in his eye because it kept blinking that eye. So he knew he hit it. He said, then this thing roared real loud. He said, and then it just dropped down to all fours and it just ran. He said he left back out the woods, went to the lady's house. Now, this is what he said he told the lady. He said, Miss, I didn't see your dog or whatever, took your dog. So he said, have you seen any coyotes in the area? She said, no, I know what a coyote is, and that wasn't no coyote. He said, because this thing was walking, on 2 feet like me and you. So he got to go back to the station because he got to make a report. So he said he tell his supervisor what he saw. So his supervisor said, I hope you don't put that in your report. He said, no, I'm not going to put it in my report. He said, okay, if you value your job, I hope you don't put it in your report. So I'm thinking that these people know what's down here and they threatening people's jobs and everything and so on like that just for them to change their store. So he said that every now and then he would still go up there and check on the lady. And he had asked her, has she seen that thing again? And she said, no, she hasn't seen it no more. And she said she not buying no more animals either for it to get took again. So that was the second encounter. This encounter comes from out of Caroline County, Virginia. And the year was 2004. And this guy name is Jesse. Now, before I get into this encounter, Vic, this guy, Jesse, he had a little business that he would go around and pick up like stray dogs in the area. If people would call in, if they getting pestered with stray dogs, like if they digging in the trash or whatever. So he said that one day at work, he had got a call. So he went out to the people's property, knocked on the door, introduced himself, and the guy said that they've been having trouble with these black dogs coming on their property all the time. He said, what kind of dogs are they? He said, I don't know what kind of dogs are they. He said, see, 2 small ones like they're pups, and they say they see 2 large ones. They said that these are really large dogs, bigger than any dog they ever seen. So he said, okay, I'm going to have a look around. So he looked around on that property to see what he could see. He said, now back there about 20 yards from the tree line, he said that it was like the ground was wet back there. It was like mud and stuff. So he said he seen some big canine prints and he seen a pup print from the front, but it didn't look like no front paw of a dog because he said they had like digits, like finger digits in it. So he said, I don't really see nothing out there, but I'll come back tomorrow morning. So he left. The next day he got up. He knocked on the door. The old lady comes to the door. He said, well, I'm here. I'm getting ready to check around. Now, mind you, in the back, they got a lot of area back there. They had a nice-sized house, so the house wasn't really small. So he said he goes around the left-hand side. He said, now, when he go around the left-hand side, he never made it really to the back of the house. He said he made it about 10 feet before you get to the back of the house, and that's where the yard would start at. He said when he got right there, he said he looked. He said he seen 2 small pups, just like it was just laying there, right there in the small grass, but the grass was it wasn't really high, laying there in the grass. So he looked, and it's like, they look like little puppies. So he said as he walking to get to the back of the house, he said he see 2 big ones on all fours walking over to where the pups is. But the pups is looking, in his direction. So one of the larger ones looked over there. Then that's when it stood up. Then that's when the other one stood up. Now, he said that he believed it was a whole family, meaning a female and the male. I said, well, could you tell them apart? He said, yeah, I could tell them apart. I said, well, can you give me a description on how they look and everything? He said they had huge canine heads. They had the ears pointing up. They had long snouts, long arms. He could see the claws because he's not that far from there. He said he see the claws. He said he see the legs. He said the thighs on these things was like somebody just been doing leg work for all their life. He said it was huge, especially on the male. He said they got the bent back leg, just like a dove. He said now, on this female, he said to him, it looked like he could see breasts, like a female, but he said they wasn't large. He said, but he know them two that was sitting up top was like breasts. Then they had like smaller things under them going down. So I said, you sure? He said, man, I know what I saw. That thing had breasts, but they wasn't big. He said, now on the male, he could see the penis between his legs. He said, then after about what seemed like 5 minutes, but it wasn't that long, he said the two little ones ran up and grabbed up onto the mother, like up on her back. He said, and then they just turned around and walked up in the tree line. Now, I said, is there anything else that you know about this older couple? He said that they've been living in this house for about 25, 30 years. He said, now, when they first moved there, they used to have a lot of Bigfoot activity. I mean, constantly, all the time. He said, but after a few years, I think he said like 5 or 6 years, he said all of a sudden they just left. And they left due to these Dogmen. And he said that they are constantly having sight to this day of these Dogmen. Now, one more thing, Vic, and I was saving this for last because this is juicy. He said that these older couples, which he saw himself, this older couple got pictures of these creatures. And he said he had seen them for himself. He said, and they nice and clear, ain't all that blurred up stuff. And I asked him, I said, man, is there any way that you can get permission for me to see these pics? He said, man, I will talk to him, Marvin. He said, but I don't know if they're going to come off of them pictures like that. He said, but I've seen them personally. So I'm going to do my best to at least try to get a look at them pictures, man, because if they got pictures of Dogman and it's that clear, man, they got a winner right there. So that was that encounter. Now, got a few encounters in South Carolina. Now, the first one, Vic, I got for you, this come out of Sumter, South Carolina. And the year was 2011. And her name was Donna. Now, Donna said one day she was sitting home, something that she usually do on the weekend, looking at TV. So she said while she was looking at TV, she noticed, because in her front room, she said that she got one of those big windows, and she had the curtain open, because it was nice outside, so she had the curtain open. So she said while she was looking at TV, she had got thirsty, so she got up to go get a drink of water. So over top of her sink, she said that it's a little small window there, and she had the window partway cracked. She said after she got her water, before she got ready to go back into the living room, she said she had something on the outside scratching, scratching on her house. So she's saying, what is that? She said, maybe it's a stray cat or something, trying to get up under the house or something like that. So she paid no attention. She said she goes sit in the front room, back down and look at TV. So she said while she looking at TV, she sees something out the corner of her eye, like her peripheral vision. She sees something out the corner of her eye. And at the corner of the window, coming past to where the curtain would be, She said she see a nose. I said, you sure it was a nose? She said, man, it was a black nose. And she said she could see where this, whatever it was, breathing, because it was steaming up the window. So she said, after about a few seconds, this thing walked out and stood right there in front of her window. She said, now mind you, from the ground up, her window is at least 8 feet tall. She said when she looked up, she seen a dog standing up looking in her window. She said this thing had yellow eyes, bright yellow eyes. She said it had a long snout. She said she could see the shoulders on this thing. She said she seen the arms. She said she could see the muscles in the arms. She seen the chest. Now, mind you, she didn't see the hands because she had that chair right there where the window was. She had that chair right there. So she said she just sitting there, and she said it was like it was slumped over, like it didn't stand up straight, like it was slumped over, looking in her window, looking at her, and just breathing. She said every time it took a breath, she said it seemed like this thing chest would just get big. Now, she said she kind of stuck. She said she can't even move. She said then this thing showed its teeth. She said she didn't hear it growl, but she seen its teeth. She said this thing had so many teeth in its mouth, it just didn't make no sense. She said after about 30, 40 seconds, this thing looks to the right. Now, to the right was her front door. So this thing walks over to the front door. Now she hear this thing turning the knob, just constantly turning the knob, flicking it, trying to open the door. She said over by the kitchen, she got a switch over there that turns on her floodlight. So she, the floodlight comes on. She said she goes back over to the front room right there where she was at. She said she could see this thing running on an angle on the other side of the street and into the tree line. Because I asked her, I said, so you didn't live like woods all around you and stuff? She said, no, her house was facing the road. And on the other side started the tree line. But behind the house is wood. So she said after this thing left, she called the police. So the police come out and she said that I don't know what it was. She said, but it was a dog looking at my window. Now, mind you, this lady told me, she said she got a good job. She didn't tell me what kind of job it was, but I was thinking that maybe she might have had a federal job or something like that. She said, but she had a good job. So she said she told these people what she saw, and they trying to tell her that ain't what you seen. They telling her, if you value your job, that ain't what you seen. I'm saying to this lady, I said, so what you say? She said, there was nothing I can say, because it's like they was threatening me to tell them I saw something else, which I didn't see nothing else. She said, I seen a dog standing up bipedal, just like a human. But the whole time they keep getting her to say it was something else. So she said she went through a lot with that victim, and I asked her, have you ever had any more experiences since that incident? She said that after that had happened, she said probably about 3 days later, she said that she could hear howling on the other side of the tree line, which is across the road, because our house was right there by the road. On the other side of the tree line, she said she could hear howling. She said loud. And she said it ain't no coyotes, it ain't no wolf. She said these was loud howls. She said she been keeping her floodlights on and her curtain shut. She said because she's scared, because the police didn't really do nothing. Only thing they got her to try to do was say it was something else. And that was that encounter, Vic. And I just think it's messed up, because these people telling you what they saw and then they switching it up and all that. It's crazy. Now, this next encounter took place in Greenville, South Carolina. The lady name is Gloria. And she said this happened to her in 2013. She said one day she woke up, getting ready to start her day because it was on the weekend. She had to run some errands. So she said she got up, got herself together, went out to the car, and started going on her way to start her errands. So she said after she took care of all her errands, she said she had stopped at this spot where she usually goes to get something to eat. So she said while she was there eating, she said she get a phone call. Now, I asked her, well, who was on the other line? She said, oh, my mother had called me and asked me, was I still going to stop past there after I finished doing what I was doing? So she told her, yeah, I'll be past there. So she said she finished up her food, paid her bill, and then she left. She goes out to the car, get in, and she said she driving. Oh, one more thing. She said she never made it to the last stop. But she said as she driving, she noticed something about 40 yards up on the right. So she looking, she said she sees something crouched down. And she said when she looked at this thing crouched down, because this thing was facing on the left side of the tree line, she said this thing was like it was eating something. She said it looked like it had elbows because it was like bending it, putting it up to its mouth. So she said she slowed down and stopped at about 20 yards. So she hit her high beams. Boom! Turned her high beams on. She said this thing turns around while I squatted, turns his head and looked at her. Then she said this thing stood up, walked out into the middle of the road, facing her, looking dead at her. She said this thing had red eyes, said it looked like fire. She said this thing had to be every bit of 8 feet. She said this thing was tall and it was huge. She said it had shoulders, had the long arms. She could see the muscles because she got high beams on this thing. She could see the muscles. She seen his hand, had hands and it had claws on it. She said this thing still had that roadkill in its left hand. She said she seen the thighs. She seen the legs, the bent back legs. She said, could she see the feet? Now, I asked her, what color was this thing? She said this thing had spots and it had the color of a, a hyena. She said it looked like a hyena, like it had the colors of a hyena. And she said that this thing had got aggressive, just like hyenas get. She said this thing started pushing its chest forward and growling at her. It had dropped the roadkill. Now this thing growling at it, she said then this thing started walking. Boom, boom. She said, and as this thing's walking, she said she sees a light coming in the opposite direction, meaning it would be coming east because she going north. She said she seen a light. She said, I guess once this car was getting close because the other car had to see it because the lights was right there. She said this thing took a leap. It went to the opposite side. She said that from the medium strip to where it was at, to that tree line, she said it had to be at least 30, 35 feet. And she said this thing leaped into that tree line like it wasn't nothing. But I had asked her though, Vic, I said, is you sure about them colors? She said, this thing looked like a hyena. She said she know what a hyena looked like. She said that's just what this thing looked like. Oh, I asked her, did she see a tail? She said she didn't see a tail on it, but she did say that it looked just like a hyena. But she seen the legs and everything. She said that after this thing leaped and went on the other side, she put that gas and she haul-tailed. She said when she gets to her mother house, she goes in her mother house, she sits down, she said she hysterical. She said she couldn't stop shaking. She said she was shaking for hours. And her mother kept asking her, baby, what's wrong? What's wrong? She said, it's nothing wrong, Ma. It's nothing wrong. She said, yes, it is, baby. Tell me what's wrong. She said it broke her heart not to tell her mother the truth. But she told her mother, she said, Ma, I'm upset because I almost got into an accident. And I could have lost my life tonight. This lady was, so hysterical when she was telling her mother that. And when I was talking on the phone, it just brought all that back, and she had to keep stopping and taking breaks and everything, which I understand. I mean, she even cried a moment when we was on the phone and everything. And I told her, take your time. You ain't got rushing up like that. And I was telling her that I had a sight, and these things, they will put you out and make a person lose it. She say that she's still having nightmares of this thing. It's like when she dreaming about it, she said she could see this thing clear as day. So I asked her had she had any more sightings like that. She said no, and she don't want to have no more. So I don't blame her. I told her she having problems. She could call me anytime she wants. So that's basically that. So now I'm on the last one. This sighting comes out of Kershaw, South Carolina. The year 1991. Now, this guy here, his family own a farm. They own land down there. And on that family property, they got chickens, they got a few cows, and they got horses. And he said sometimes his chore was to tend to the animals. So he said this one day he ain't had nothing to do. He had spare time. He really basically had the day free, what he had told me. So he said that he called his buddy Bob, who usually go fishing and hunting with him. And so he told Bob, he said, if you're not doing nothing, Bob, you want to come over and we go fishing? So Bob tell him, yeah, I'll be over, just give me about a half hour. Now, on this guy's property, they got some little four-wheeler things. So when they do go, they can ride and then they can park their four-wheeler. Now, another thing, on their property, he said that they got 3 ponds on their property. And he said in one certain pond, because he said their ponds are huge, he said in one of their ponds, he said they got a lot of bass. So he said that would be the spot where they would go at looking to fish for some bass. He said, so after about 30, 35, 40 minutes, he said, Bob come. So he said they load up everything on the four-wheelers. And he asked Bob, he said, Bob, you got your sidearm? He said, yeah, I got mine. So both of them was protected because they always carry their guns when they fish or hunting and everything. So he said that he told Bob, he said, we're going to go out to the pond. They got the bass in it. So mind you, he said they got several trails that they could go through leading to these ponds throughout the property. But they said they had one real big wide trail where the four wheels can go through. Really, both of them can go through side by side. That's how wide it was. So he said while they riding, they see the usual animals like possums, they see deers and stuff like that, squirrels, coons. So he said after about 35 minutes, he said they get to this pond. So they parked their four-wheelers. They both had coolers. So Bob goes about 30 feet down from the guy who owns that land right there. So he said, all right, well, I'm going to stay up here and I'm going to fish at this spot. So he said that they threw their reels in and they started to fish. He said after about 15 minutes, Bob caught his first fish. So he reeled it in, took it off the hook, he put it in the cooler. So his line back in. So he said after a few more minutes, he caught another fish, reeled it in, and he put it in the cooler. So he looks up at his buddy and he said, oh, I guess you ain't having no luck today. Do you want to come down here with me? He said, no, I'm all right. I'm going to catch me something today. He said, so he still got his reel in the water because he never caught nothing yet. So then he said he heard something behind him about 20 yards up in the tree line because he said it's a lot of brush up there too. He said he heard something. He said he heard something up there like it's sticks breaking and stuff like that. So he said, Bob, do you hear that? And Bob said, no, I don't hear nothing. So he said, come here for a minute, Bob. So Bob comes up there. He said, listen, but they don't hear nothing. So he said after a minute, they hear it again. But this time, it's about 10 feet from where the guy who owned the property, they hear it down there, about 10 feet from where it was at the first time. So they both hear it now. So Bob looks over in that direction and he tells them, he say, look, he said when he look over there, he said that he see a set of ears sticking up just above the brush. Now, mind you, this brush, as they go, starts to get a little higher, but they can see these ears. The ears is facing towards them, so they see two ears sticking straight up. So this thing, they watching the ears, it's like it turns around and it walks into the direction to where Bob was at down there fishing. So they still watched it, but the ears disappeared because of the brush. It had got really high. So he said after a few seconds, he said they hear this popping sound. You know, like something making pops like they bones. He said then this thing stood up. He said that when it stood up, he said he know for a fact that brush right there got to be at least 6 feet. Say this thing towered over top of that. And this thing looks in their direction, looks straight at him. Then it turns and looks back down the direction to where Bob was fishing at. It walks down. Now, when it walks down there, it's like a little trail slope that you go down. This thing walks down there. And when it walks down there, it stands 5 feet from where the pond begins. And this thing turns around and it looks at him. Now, both of them see this. Now, I had to get the guy who owned the property. I got his story first. Then I had to wait and get the other guy's story so I could collaborate them together. And pretty much their story was identical. Maybe it was a little bit off as far as like the height of the grass, or they might think this thing had silver tips and stuff like that. But anyway, their stories was identical. So they say this thing is looking at them now. So, you know, I asked, what did it look like? They said this thing had a long snout and they said it was wide. They said this thing had shoulders, the long arms. This thing only like 20 feet away from. This thing had long arms and this thing had long claws. They said it had thick legs. It had the bent back legs just like a dove would have. And they said this thing had, okay, on the left-hand side, no, the right-hand side of this thing snout, they said they could see teeth on the right-hand side where the snout would be. But they said this thing mouth would close, but they could see the gums and all that up there. They could see all them teeth right there. From that up there where the canine started at, all the way back there. And this thing mouth was closed. So what they were saying that they think this thing was wounded. Like it got in a fight or something. Either something bit it or another Dogman scratched it with them claws and ripped all that. Because all that was gone on the right-hand side of this thing's snout. So they said this thing is just standing there. It's just standing there. After about 10 or 15 seconds, this thing started to growl real low. So they looking. So the guy who owned the property, he say, Bob, I think it's time for us to go. And Bob say, you're right, it's time for us to go. Now, mind you, they still got their side on. So they said after they started walking backwards, this thing get ready to take a step. Now, the guy that owned the property say he draws his weapon. He got a .357. He draws his weapon. So he said, man, Bob, if this thing take another step, I'm going to shoot it. The thing took a step. It started walking. He said he a warning shot. Boom. This thing still walking. He shoots again. He shoots what would be to his right, but to that creature left. He shoots again. He shoots it at the dirt. Hit the dirt. They can see the dirt. Boosh. Pop up. So he said this thing still walking. Now mind, this thing wasn't that far from him. So this thing closing in. So he said he shoots again. Boom. He said he hit this thing in the right shoulder. It's like it nudged him, like it just jerked him just a little bit. But he said it's like it didn't even phase this thing. Now, he said this thing had to be intelligent. He said because where he shot this thing at, it took his head and looked over in that direction. He said that messed their head up. He said this thing had to be smart because this thing know where that we got shot at. And it looked over in that direction. Then this is the really freaky part. He said this thing looked to the left of him. He said he don't know what kind of noise this thing made. It must have been a call out for a signal because that's what it was. He said this thing made some kind of noise when it looked to the left of him. Then this thing turned around and looked at them again. This thing pissed because it got shot. He said this thing started walking again. He said, man, saying in his mind, yo, I don't know if I can kill it, but if I have to, I'm going to try. So he said he shoots again. Boom! He said this time when he shoot it, he said it hit it in his thigh. On the left side, he hits it in his thigh. So this thing stopped. And he said this thing did it again. It looked down. Like it's saying, this man done shot me. Said this thing ain't dumb. Said this thing is smart. So it looked down. And it looked back up. And it looked at him. Now, where this thing made that call at, whatever it was, a cry for help, on the left-hand side of it, he say they looks over there and they see two of them. Two more on the opposite side of this pond. Two more. Now, when they look over there and he see them, they on all fours at this time. He say this thing makes that sound again. He said then these other two just rose up on all fours and stood up on two legs. He said they rose up and they looked over there in that direction. They started walking on the opposite side of that pond, coming up. Now, like I told you, that pond is big, but the steps they take, it probably wasn't going to take them that long to get around there, but they never waited to see all that. So they walking in that direction of the pond to go up the opposite way to come around. So he tells Bob, go and start the four-wheeler. Start mine too. So Bob goes. He starts the four-wheeler. Now, this first creature, it ain't moving. It's still standing there. But he still got that 357 aimed at it. But this Dogman is pissed because it got shot. And he say these things, like I said, he said these things is not dumb and smart. Because where he got shot at, he said it messed his head up. It looked in that direction. So he said, at the ball, get the four-wheeler started because he said, we leaving everything. We're not taking nothing. We just going to get on these four-wheelers and we going to go. He said he's backing up, to get on the four-wheeler. So this thing just standing there, but it's growling at him. This thing pissed. It's growling at him. So once he gets to where his four-wheeler at, he get on, but he still got the gun on him. Now, mind you, they already started up. So they started to pull off slow. But he looking back. Because I told you that trail real big coming in. Anyway, they got a big trail. So he's driving slow, but he looking back, and he got the gun on this creature. He say, this thing just leaped up where it came from, up there with the brush at. It just leaped up there. When it got up there, he said it dropped down to all fours. Now, mind you, they say now they going back towards the house. And the four-wheeler is kind of loud. He say, but these was loud up. He say they was coming through them woods, tearing them trees up, knocking down. He say they coming, and he know they coming. So they get to the back of the guy's property, coming out the trail, going over there, and they pause it. He say when they get off, they turn around and look. They see them two that they seen on the opposite side of the pond. So I asked them, because it's not that far. That trail that they took, it ain't that far to the back of the house where they had parked them four-wheelers at. I say, well, what did they look like? He say, they was the same color. They was black. He said, one of them had like patches of gray in it, but they had the long snouts They had the broad shoulders, so they could see the arms. They could see black nails, the bent back legs. He said both of them had tails, so they could see the tail. They both of them had tails. He said now, while they standing there, he said this other one was coming up the trail. The trail that just came out. This other one was coming up the trail. They could see it because the trail is really right there where they was coming out to park their four-wheeler. Now they see this thing. They say this thing was coming up on all fours. They said that it's like it was galloping. It's like it was leaving the ground with all fours, the arms and the hands, all of them would come up at the same time. But he said they had like a funny, like it was up and down. It was like a funny way. They said this thing was running on all fours. He said, but it was running up there fast. They could see it. Said, and this thing stayed down on all fours. He said, man, when he looked at this thing, when it was down on all fours, Vic, it looked straight up out of a horror movie. He said this thing was huge. And he said it set up high. He said their front was up high too. And he said they just standing there. They just standing there and look at him. I said, well, did you try to shoot at him or anything like that? He said, man, that was three of them. We sure wasn't going to shoot at them because we didn't know what was going to happen. I said, do you think that was the first one that you shot? He said, man, tell you the truth, Mom. He said, I don't even know. He said, because the way this thing was running, it was running like nothing hit it in that shoulder or that leg. He said, it's like this thing was running like it didn't feel nothing. And I said, well, did any features stand out to you to tell you that it probably could have been that one? He said, I don't think that was it, because that thing was huge. He said, now the one that I shot, that was big too. But he said, it's just the way this thing was on all fours, just looking over there. He said, this thing was huge. He said, his head was just wide. He said, that first one had a wide head too, but he said, this one, he said, this thing was definitely huge. He said, he don't know if that was the leader of them. He said, but this thing was real big. He said, but these things, he said they stood there for about 5-6 minutes, like they just staring at him, just looking. He said, and after those 6 minutes was up, he said the one that was down on all fours turned around and it started walking. It didn't run. He said it started walking. Then the other two just turned around and it just started walking. He said, now when the two turned around, he said he could see right there. He said on one of them, he said the back of it, up where that neck at, they really got a neck, but right there though, where that humpy at, he said that thing had a lot of hair right there. Like what, I guess what a lion would have. He said up there, he said that was thick. He said that had a lot of hair. Now, another thing that Bob told me, Bob said that he got an uncle that worked for the sheriff department. So he was telling his buddy, people who own that property, he said, man, did you have any idea that these things was on your property like that? He said, man, that's my first time seeing them. He said, well, I'm going to go holler at my uncle and I'm going to ask him, what should you do? So he says he goes sees his uncle, who was on the police force. And he told him, he said, you know, they got something on their property that really shouldn't be there. You know, I asked him, what was it? He said that they got doves that could stand up on 2 feet and walk and take bullets like it ain't nothing. And he said, and these are his exact words, he said his uncle told him, oh, he ain't the first one. He said that his uncle said that they have gotten a lot of people who came forth and said they've been seeing what some people call them down there walking doves. He said they done got a lot of people calls for that like that. And he was asking them to say, well, what should they do? He said, it's nothing you can do. Leave it alone. You don't bother them, they ain't gonna bother you. I mean, this uncle had told him, he said, we've been with them things was down here. But his uncle never had got a sighting before, though. But he said a lot of people done called in about some walking black doves. So they have got a lot of people down there that called in about them things. And I had talked to the guy after I got the sightings from him, and I asked him, I said, so have you been fishing lately on your property, or have you seen any of them since then? He said, no, he haven't seen none. He said, but on several occasions at nighttime, he said that he could see eye shine in that tree line. He said he didn't know what it was, but he said he could see eye shine in that tree line. Red eye shine and yellow eye shine. He said, but I'm pretty sure that probably was those things. He said because the eye shine was too far up for it to be a small critter, a small animal that's usually indigenous to the area. But he said, yeah, he has seen eye shine on several occasions. But as far as running into them again, no, he said he haven't run into them no more. And I think that might be the last one.
Well, that's okay because we're about out of time. Before we get out of here, I do have a couple of questions for you. I don't know if you heard Dave Lighty on episode 95 talk about the Dogman he shot in the swamp that night in the shoulder, but he said that when he shot it with his .357 mag, it acted like it had just been punched too. Did you hear that episode?
Yeah, I heard it. I heard that. Yeah, because it's like it didn't do nothing to it. But he said what messed him up, he said the thing looked over in that direction. That's what he said messed his head up. He said these things ain't dumb. He said these things is intelligent.
Yeah, they definitely are. That's one of the creepiest things about them, how smart they are. Did Bob ever tell you if he saw blood coming from that Dogman's gunshot wound?
But you know what? I did ask him that. When that .357 hit him, no. Never told me that. They said they never even went back down there to that pond to even check. Now, the come to think about it, though, because he didn't say, like, if you hit something and it make that sound like that, because he know he hit it, and it wasn't that far away. He did hit it, but it was like a little punch. But maybe that thing did bleed. Might have didn't bleed heavy, but maybe it did bleed. But another thing that messed their head up is when that thing made that noise, some kind of noise on the other side of that pond, and them other two come out. It's just as crazy.
It is crazy. It's safe to say none of those guys got any sleep that night. That had to be awfully rough to deal with.
Yeah, definitely rough. But I just noticed about some of these encounters, though, how these people, even the police, man, they covering it up. They just covering it up, and it don't make no sense.
Yeah, they definitely do cover it up. But what else is new?
You're right about that. You're right about that. But like I said, though, when I told you that encounter about them people that had them Bigfoots on their property and everything, and now the Dogmans done moved in, they was telling me that they got pictures of these creatures. And the guy who gave me the story, he said he had seen these pictures. And he said they're not clear, but he said you can tell what these things is. And he said they got them standing up. Said he got several pictures of them. So I'm asking him, I mean, is there any way that maybe they could send it to my phone or whatever like that? But yeah, I really want to see them.
Well, I wouldn't hold my breath waiting on him to come off of those pictures. Yeah, most eyewitnesses who have evidence like that, they normally guard them pretty closely.
Yeah, you know what, though, Vic? I think that's you because they might think that a person gonna just am out there for the world to see, and that's something they probably don't want.
Yeah, in most cases they don't. Well, we're about out of time, Marvin. I want to thank you so much for coming back on and sharing those stories with us. I really appreciate it.
It's no problem. And just like always, man, I appreciate everything that you do and everything. And for the next time that I do this, I already got two in my phone already that I done wrote out that I had got from Dave. I just didn't use them tonight because that would have been a lot. That would have been 2 minutes. That would have been like 8. And those are kind of long, too.
Well, you already know. As soon as you've got those ready, yeah, please do let me know and we'll bring you back on. Well, thanks again so much for your time. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.